program a few years ago, and Peggy and Steve already have one Standardbred. He was actually their foster failure. They used to foster horses from our placement program and put some training in on them. It's okay, buddy. So Saul did race. He was actually a racing club horse that they have at Century for the different breeds. He's a big boy. And Peggy and Steve's other Standardbred actuary is getting up there now. He's 19, but they drive as a pair. But they just brought Saul today. So Steve has spent the last 20 years honing his skills in the art of driving, progressing from simple homemade setups to the challenging, exciting discipline of tandem driving, in which Peggy plays a key role. Tandem driving, if you don't know, is one horse in front of the other, not side by side. Peggy plays a key role as his navigator, helping to guide their carriage safely and efficiently, whether they're competing or training. Steve's journey into driving began in a simple hands-on way by building his own wooden sleigh, borrowing a cheap racing harness, and hitching up his old gelding to see what would happen. With no formal training at the time, he set down the road, discovering firsthand just how much there was to learn about the art of driving. And determined to do things the right way, Steve saved up for a proper harness and carriage and immersed himself in the discipline. He attended every local clinic he could, took lessons, and studied books on the driving techniques. He spent 6 to 8 years refining his skills in both single and pair driving, building a solid foundation that would later lead him to the more advanced and demanding world of tandem driving. Together, Steve and Peggy began volunteering at driving events hosted by Alberta Carriage Driving Association. What started as a way to gain experience quickly turned into the passion. The more he saw, the more he wanted to learn. Steve's education took a huge leap forward when he was invited to a clinic with Drew Callahan, a seasoned driving expert. Drew opened Steve's eyes to the importance of giving rein, encouraging suppleness and relaxation in the horse's movement. This is really important for an off-the-track Standardbred, and I think I tried to get that across to people yesterday. That relaxation is something you strive for in any discipline. But it makes the job that much easier for the horse. It helps to give them rhythm and balance when they're relaxed, in a relaxed frame. Now you can see Saul is a pretty big moving guy, but he's doing okay in this size arena because he's learned how to use his body differently now. He's engaging his hindquarters a little more, pushing off. He's lightening in the front end. He's a bit more balanced to do the job. Whereas if he had gone straight into, not having been schooled, he would still be kind of in the same posture as he would when he's racing, which doesn't really allow for you to maneuver and do bending lines and things like that when they're in a posture where their head and neck are elevated, their back is more flat, they're not engaging the hind end. It's really hard to bend and like I say, to do much of the maneuvers that he is doing in combined driving. And in combined driving, there's 3 different stages. First day is dressage. It's kind of like eventing for ridden horses. So the first day is driven dressage test. Day 2 is the marathon. So they're going through cross country and through different hazards, as they're called, or obstacles. They can be quite complicated. If you ever get a chance, YouTube combined driving and watch the marathon day. It's quite exciting. And then the last day is a cones course. So you're negotiating a certain pattern that's predetermined, and there's little balls on the cones. They're specifically designed cones for driving. And if you knock one of the cones off, cones, it's a 5-second penalty. So the course is judged in faults, time faults, and penalties for knocking the balls off, or going through an obstacle or a set of cones in the wrong direction, something like that. Anyway, but for the size of Saul, for being the way he is, he's very nice and light to drive. He can maneuver around things because he has been reconditioned, in a sense, to be able to do the job. He's only 7 years old now, right, Steve?
Correct.
Yeah. So you got him when he was 4. He hadn't raced a long time. Why don't you just fill us in how he's been to train, Steve?
Pardon, say again?
How has he been to train from the time you got him, which he was, he didn't have a lot of retraining in him at that point, because we had only had him for a few years, and I knew that Peggy and Steve were looking for another horse to pair with Actuary, and Saul came along, and the rest is history. So I didn't really put any time into him retraining him because I knew Peggy and Steve would be able to do it. So, sorry, Steve, go ahead and tell us how he was.
He is fabulous to work with. He wants to learn. He likes to go. He wants to make you happy. He tries really hard to do what you ask of him. He's very easy to train. You can overtrain him. He wants to go and go and go. So you got to be a little careful because he will go and go, like I said, forever. This is pretty tight in here for him. I was going to try to do a dressage pattern, but I don't know how I'm going to manage that.
No, pretty hard in here. Yeah, we need you in one of the big arenas to do that.
Yeah. But I'm always working on his. The big thing for him is his bend, and to learn to bend. There we go. Easy.
Yeah, it's still fairly tight for him in here.
It's really
he's a big
tight
horse, and he's actually moving pretty together. So
he's a right-sided horse too, so he bends better to the right than the left. Mm-hmm. So you always got to help him a lot with half faults when we're going to the right, because you can see he's a little cocked there a little bit.
Yeah.
But my obstacles are a bigger area than this arena for us, so. But as you can see, he's very willing.
Oh yeah. Well, and Saul's a lucky boy because he gets to spend his winters in Arizona.
And he loves to canter.
There we go.
He just loves to canter. and this year he got to canter because he went into a higher division easy, but last year in training he wasn't allowed to canter, and that was not good because we got penalized for him wanting to canter all the time. So he moved up a division, so now he loves to canter. And
so what's he training in now? What division?
Prelim.
Prelim.
Yeah, he's under prelim.
Yeah.
So I got the 2 in prelim now.
Okay. So. And you're still working them together in tandem, is that right?
Slowly, yes.
Yeah.
We have a long way to go before we can actually show them in tandem. I still haven't decided which one's going to be out front because this guy's got such a big stride. Poor Actuary's got a canter to keep up to this guy's stride. Hey, bud. Up, up, up. Come on. There we go. And if you don't think a Standardbred can canter, boy, you have no idea.
Well, I think you'll see, yeah. Well, hopefully I showed you with Georgie yesterday too. We haven't started him cantering under saddle, but he cantered beautifully yesterday on the lunge line, and that's just, to show you that they are quite capable of cantering. But until you get them more balanced, and especially in a trot, walk, it's not really ideal to try and start cantering them when they're not in the proper, again, sort of posture, and being able to maintain. It takes a lot to canter, and you want to build up that hind end in the core as well. to allow them to do it easier. But if they're asked to do it too soon, they often get very anxious about it, and they'll end up forebeating, or they'll get very bracy in the canter. So you're better off really developing a nice rhythm, softness, relaxation in the trot, and making sure that they're, strong enough. And then when they pick up the canter, it's much easier for them, and they're much more likely to be able to maintain it in a proper frame. Okay, we have a couple minutes left. Is there any questions for Steve while we have him here? Steve or Peggy? Peggy, Navigator Peggy? Peggy's the one that does the real hard job.
That's correct.
On the marathon course, it's the navigator's job to be able to know where they're going, and it can be quite a lengthy course, and which hazards to do. Actually, they have to go through the hazards, and they're called gates, generally. So the navigator has to, and timing. The whole course is timed, but you have to know how much time you have in each obstacle as well. So there's a lot to figure out being a navigator. Not to mention she's got to hang on for dear life if Steve decides to go wild and, go around some obstacles very fast. You haven't been thrown off, I hope, Peggy.
No, I've never lost her, but she had come flying off the ground a couple times. Especially when you get going around an obstacle.
Well, thank you very much for bringing Saul. It was wonderful to see all of you.
And wow.
I used to visit them when they were in Arizona, when I used to go down there regularly. I always made a trip to go and see Peggy and Steve and the horses, and learn a little bit of tandem driving from Steve. So let's give them